Welcome again to another episode of Diversitas. Diversitas is a podcast at the crossroads of diversity, business, and culture. Today we have a good one. We have with us today Mustafa Rashed, who is President and CEO of Bellevue Strategies. Bellevue Strategies is a preeminent, some would say the preeminent, government relations firm based here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Over the course of 10 years, Mustafa has created and grown Bellevue Strategies into a powerhouse serving a who's who of public, private, and nonprofit clients. Today, we speak to Mustafa about leadership, entrepreneurship, and the current political landscape here in Philadelphia and in our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So with that introduction, welcome, Mustafa. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that introduction. I'm going to steal your notes and have everybody use those moving forward, man.
Come on now. It's funny because we'll get to it in a minute, but I remember when this whole thing that you're doing now was like a little glint in your eye.
Yes.
And you have created, truthfully, you have created an amazing organization and institution. So we appreciate you having on. So for the uninitiated, tell us what Bellevue Strategies is.
Sure. So Bellevue Strategies is a government relations and strategic communications firm. And I know that might sound vague to some folks. I'll try to break it down. Someone told me once, people call us a firm like ours for one or two reasons. And it's for inspiration or for or for desperation, right? So someone got in trouble usually through no fault of their own. They're in a highly regulated industry like retail, energy, human services, nonprofit, education, where the state officials or city officials keep an eye on what it is that they're doing. And something's happening not great with their business. So we get called in for reasons like that. So problem solving, troubleshooting, or someone calls us for inspiration. That's the other reason. When they have an idea, they want to scale it. They want to get government support from a city, state, or federal level. They want to have more people know about what it is that they're doing, so they can help more people. And so, in those two spaces are typically where we play. We can help people bring their solutions to help more people to a larger base, or we help folks to sort of navigate through crisis or a challenge that their business might be facing.
Is there a difference, a practical difference between calling a firm a lobbying firm versus a government relations firm?
No, it's interchangeable. There's no practical difference between it. It's interchangeable. The team, our team are lobbyists, are registered lobbyists on the team, and are all government relations professionals. So there's no difference between it.
So this is a little bit kind of off script, but I did see a list recently of government relations firms.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was puzzled by that list.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, continue. I'm
so can I speak freely?
We can speak freely. Tell me why you were puzzled.
So I was puzzled because Bellevue wasn't on that list.
Okay. All right. So we declined to be on that list.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'll tell you why. So they sent us they said your firm was recognized as a top 50 firms in Harrisburg,
right?
Office in Harrisburg, and so,
right.
and I said, well, what's the metrics? And they said it was based on revenue, and I said, I didn't like that metrics. Like, for example, it wouldn't include any of our revenue, any of our city lobbying. It wouldn't include any of our public relations work, any of our strategic communications work, or any of our business development, business advocacy work we do on behalf of Black businesses. So it would have only included state lobbying work. And I thought that was an unfair comparison. And I talked to my team about it. I said, on the whole, humbly, I'll put our firm's ability to get things done, our revenue up against anyone. But
right.
That metrics, I thought that was unfair. More importantly, I don't believe that revenue to be the key metric of effectiveness. You could have a firm and have one employee, and that your client, not to pick on an industry, but let's say you're a lobbyist for the coal industry.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying you $1 million a year because they're trying to slow the decline, the inevitable decline of their business. That's just revenue. It doesn't mean that you're good.
Right.
Mean that you're effective. It means that you have one client that's overpaying you to stay alive
Right.
longer than what they should.
Right.
A better metrics would be how many employees you have, how many clients you have, how many offices you have. Like, those are more important metrics than strictly revenue. It also, they didn't account for your ability to get things done, your effectiveness. And I don't know how you would measure that, maybe through case studies or through
Right.
your professional reputation.
Right.
But the effectiveness of a firm is, can you get things done?
Right.
And if you're not going to evaluate, can I get things done? A diverse list of clients across all kinds of industries, reputation, team, like, if you're not going to count all that in and it's just revenue, I thought that was an unfair comparison, what's the word there? An incomplete comparison, and we declined to be part of it.
Right. And it's interesting because it also doesn't speak to, I mean, when you describe all the things that Bellevue does, that list in and of itself wouldn't speak to the totality of your brand, right?
It wouldn't. And
right.
And I think when they started putting that list together, I think they found out that might not have been the best metric, but they had already committed to it. So you could, if you go back through it again, you'll notice that people that aren't, they wound up putting firms on it that aren't even government relations firms. They put our firms on there because they just ran out of.
They put law firms in there, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right. So I thought, this is not really fair. I think in our business, your reputation on being able to get things done is critical. What your peers say about you, what legislators say about you, what your clients say about you is very critical. And if they're not going to use that as a metric, I didn't think that was a fair comparison.
So now and thank you for that. I know that was kind of like, but it did, that's been bothering me for like a couple of weeks, because I was like, how could that possibly?
How could that be? Yeah.
Yeah.
We got that question a lot, and I over time feel better and better about the decision to decline.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's going to have an impact on, what you do or whatever, right? So let's back up though, and kind of tell us, like, how you started off in journalism and public relations. How did you get to kind of where you are today in terms of getting from there to government relations work?
Yeah. So I did start off with journalism. My first job that shed some light into a career, I was 14 years old and did an internship at the Philadelphia Tribune. I was in high school. And at the Tribune, I saw for the first time a professional Black middle class. And I had never seen that before. And I saw that through politics, through community relations, through education, that there was a world that existed outside of where I grew up. And as a 14-year-old kid, I tell this story just because it's just funny how things can impact your life as a kid and put you on a path. There was a guy there, and he's still around. His name was Tommy St. Hill. He was a reporter at the Tribune, and he drove a Mercedes-Benz. He drove a silver 190E Mercedes-Benz. We'll never forget it. And then from where I came from, only drug dealers drove Mercedes-Benz. And this was a professional Black man who had a Mercedes-Benz. And I was like, whatever it is that he's doing, that seems like a path.
Tommy St. Hill.
This is 1988. I said, that seems like a path to be on. I want to know more about what that's like. So I did that a couple summers at the Tribune. Got to meet a lot of people, learned just a lot about politics and names that I'd heard on the radio or saw in the newspaper. Got to meet those people because at some point they all came to the Tribune for an interview or they were covered in a story. And so, paid attention to politics, was interested in it. Left Philadelphia, joined the military, came back, went to college. And when I graduated from college, the first job I had was for a public relations firm who did a lot of public affairs work. So they represented authorities, agencies, nonprofits, some city agencies, and they also worked on John Street's mayoral campaign. That was for Crawley.
Mm-hmm.
And so thrown into the campaign world.
Was that Crawley, Haskins, and
Crawley, Haskins,
whatever?
and Rogers, yeah, Crawley, Haskins, and Rogers. Thrown into the campaign world, and saw that, okay, wow, this is how you get elected. This is how it happens. Worked there for some time, and then back to journalism. Worked for Jimmy Tyoon when he was starting his newspaper, and people thought
You worked for Jimmy Tyoon?
Did
at that
at the Public Record. Yep, helped him start
that's
the newspaper.
hilarious.
Yeah, I did. And people thought he was crazy for starting a newspaper in 2000. But it lasted for a very long time. It lasted for a very long time. He built that through his reputation and the people that knew and thought that this could be a thing. And he did very well with it. And so I worked with him for 2 years there, and then back into more journalism. Worked at CBS, at KYW News Radio, and then NBC 10, and then back into public relations again. And after a while, I thought, I could do this myself. It just doesn't seem that complicated. Like, how hard can it be? I can go and do this. And then you realize that the people that are doing it because it looks easy is because they spent so much time on it. And I thought I was way smarter than them, and I was not. And now it's a lesson that I learned over and over again, is that people, when someone makes something look easy, is because they put a lot of time into it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more to running a business, especially a relationship-based business, than who you know. But I feel like my experience in journalism, public relations, and sales were helpful. But the vision I had for it started with the question, and that was, how come in Philadelphia, where we have a minority population of African Americans, and most of our elected officials historically, well, for the past few generations, have been Black, how come the liaisons to those communities and to those elected officials have not been? And no one can answer that question.
Excellent question.
I thought it was peculiar. And so you would go to a place like City Council and watch a caucus session, and you would see Black elected officials, Black community people, and then the people who literally went back and forth between them were not that. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. If I'm trying to reach a certain demo or women, or you should, people who have a shared lived experience so they can connect and communicate. And I would ask that question, how come there aren't Black firms that do this kind of work? And other than Billy Miller, Senior, God rest his soul. There wasn't anyone who really did that kind of work. There are a lot of people, individuals, consultants who did the work, but not firms. And I just thought
correct.
A lot of sense.
And there is a difference, right?
There is a difference.
There are individuals out there that are doing government relations work.
Yes. Yep, there are who are and do good work,
right?
And have been doing it for a while, but without a full team, it's hard to make that sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Without a full team, it's hard to represent Fortune 500 companies because you want a lot, and it's hard really to grow and scale your business without that. So I just, it seemed like a glaring miss in the space, and I didn't think that I just didn't think it made any sense why that didn't exist. And then I couldn't get an answer as to why. It wasn't like it was prohibited, it just didn't really exist. And so I said, well, let's see if we can figure out if we can answer some of those questions, and we can make this work.
And so so let me ask this to get a little more specific. I recall, for those of you folks who are watching this who don't know, I've had a fair amount of, I hesitate to use the word experience, so I'll use the word exposure. To politics in Philadelphia, to political folks in Philadelphia. We run in the same circles, et cetera. So when I ask questions of anybody, and Mustafa included, then there's a context to that. And so I remember when you were helping someone run for mayor.
Yes, yes.
So
Oh, yeah.
talk about
Talk
that.
about that.
And then
Yes.
was
Yep.
that your kind of official entree back
Yes,
into the
it
purely
was.
political space? So talk
It
about that.
absolutely was. So it was I view it as, and you have to do these things in life, like as an internship,
Yeah. A
right?
lost leader.
A lost leader, yes, a lost leader, an internship, a course correction. You have to do these things in life. You have to go and learn new skills and new experiences to either help you on the path that you're on or put you on a new path. And I thought, my best friend, who we've talked about doing this for years, that if we believe in a process and we did a respectful process, that there was no way we could lose. And by lose, I mean, I don't mean get all the majority of the votes. I just mean
Right.
the process. Because
It'll be positive no matter what the
no
outcome.
matter what, because I would tell you, you could lose by getting the majority of the votes. And now you got to go fix those problems.
Well, we've kind of seen that.
Right, because it's like, congrats, you won. Now what?
Yeah, right. Now what? Oh my God,
Yeah,
I don't want this job.
Right. The best thing that your best thing that you can do is do well, show well, present well, be prepared, and present yourself to any opportunities that move out of that. And so that was the path, that was the plan. It was always like, when this is finished, it's going to set me on the track that I need to be. And so I go back to the start of my career when I worked on a campaign, and you get to meet, and I knew you get to meet a whole bunch of people in a very short period of time. And there's no better way to do that for this kind of business than through a campaign. And it's advice I give people who want to get started in this now, is to go work on a campaign. You will excel, no matter where you are in your career, you will accelerate where you want to go by that, because it's a very condensed process and there's nothing quite like it. So
yeah,
you could be 40 or 50 years old, and you want to go get into politics, go work on a campaign.
I mean, I did the same thing. I worked for a candidate who's not named on this in a mayoral campaign back in '98, and that was really my reintroduction to all things politics in Philadelphia. So, yeah.
There's no better way to do it. And so that was the process, and it was like, you know what, we'll no matter what happens, we'll land on our feet. It's funny enough, we were both 40 years old at the time, and I spent a lot of time thinking about that now. That was literally the halftime of your life, right?
Yeah, man.
It's halftime. Like you got to go, you got to make your adjustments, be ready for the third quarter, because the fourth quarter is not guaranteed. But you got to halftime, you look back and you say, 40, here's what I've done so far. Am I on the right track for the next two quarters?
Right.
And if you're not, that's the time to say, all right, I got to tear this all down and start all over again, so you can get on the right track. And it wasn't a complete teardown. It was like more like it was a halftime adjustment.
Right. It was a course correction.
Yes, it was a course correction. It was like, well, the path you're on is somewhat safe and comfortable, but it has a ceiling. It has limitations. And are you really getting to your full potential? And I think there's more potential that's there. And I think, and that other nagging question that had always been there is, how come this industry doesn't exist for people of color? It had not been answered. Let's go find out if we can get an answer to that.
I love that. I mean, I think the thing that, in my opinion, so I would say that, you were right, obviously. I mean, obviously, if you look at your career, if you look at, I can say Doug, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at Doug's career, and Doug Oliver is now a very well-respected executive with Pico Exelon.
Yep.
What you did on that campaign, though, I think, so you could have run that campaign, Mustafa, and done a not so great job.
Yeah.
And you could have used the fact that you guys really didn't have any resources as the explanation. I won't say excuse, but as the explanation for why you didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
But you did do a great job with no resources whatsoever. Right. Just using social media, etc. Talk about that a little bit, and how you got
it. So you can, And so it's funny, as we were putting the strategy together to do it, you think of, I don't know if it's judo or jujitsu, where it's just like, you can't use your opponent's playbook to win their game. You can't, you're never going to get there. You can't. And if you've not built up a political career of relationships where you can call people, I remember someone said, go through every person in your call list and for fundraising. I said, well, I could do that 3 times and it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not. But what you did have was shoe leather and hustle.
Right.
So the things that you couldn't do because they would not have been productive force you to go do other things. It forced you to go out and talk to people, force you to go out and ride the subway and have conversations with real people. It forced you to take it to a different approach. And then when it came to the things that you had to do, debates, forums, interviews, discussions, we were not going to be unprepared for those. Like it just, the issues aren't complex, the solutions are. And so we could talk about the issues all the time and how we get the actual answers, anyone can sort of debate their way through them. But we're never going to be unprepared. We're never going to disrespect the process. It was just, we're just not going to use those tools to try to win it because we just don't think that that's going to be effective. And you're right. We could have used it as an excuse and sort of mailed it in and said, no, but you have to go through the process and give it your best and say, we gave it our absolute best. And if we did it again, I don't think there's anything differently that we would have done it, because it would have been using a different playbook. We've got to use the built-in advantages that we have and see where it takes us. And I would say we overperformed where we needed to be.
Oh, there's no question. I completely agree with that. There's no question.
Correct.
Because a lot of people were saying, what?
Yeah.
What? When this first became an idea that people were bandying about, it was like, what? I don't really understand what you're saying to me, right? But you guys, you guys did a phenomenal job on that, and so that was your, I think that had to be a moment of moments for you in terms of your journey and kind of getting to where you are now. So it is something interesting that you said, which is that I wanted to interrogate, and I'm paraphrasing, but I wanted to interrogate why there were not firms of color doing this work. And so when you interrogated why firms of color weren't doing this work, what did you find out?
So one of the more profound answers I got was from Bill Wilson of Centera. And he said, if you go and start it, you won't have to ask that question again.
Okay.
And I said, that's an answer.
It is an answer.
It wasn't an answer I was looking for. He said, not only will you not have to ask that question again, other people won't have to ask that question because it'll just be done. It will have been done. That barrier won't be there anymore. That perceived barrier that it can't be done won't be there anymore. You won't have to ask that question, and other people won't have to ask that question anymore. So that again, that wasn't an answer I was looking for, but it was an answer that was given to me, and that one stuck with me. The other answers were not sort of like definitive in a way to say that it couldn't be done. It was just more so it hadn't been done. So no one ever said it can't be done. It just said it has not been done. And as I started to go through the process, I could come up with reasons why it hadn't been done, but then those reasons are really just excuses.
Right.
They're just excuses. Like,
right.
You're not a lawyer, or this doesn't happen, or no one's going to give you business, or no. So those are really just, I found out to be excuses, and I'm glad I didn't lean into them as a reason not to do it. And I thought the advice that Mr. Wilson gave me is, if you do this, you won't have to ask that question in the future. And neither.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. So now I know your head count is around 14, 15?
About 18.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so, I think about you every time we send that payroll in. I think about you.
God bless you. But tell, so let me ask you this question. As you have grown in terms of the people that are working with you, has your leadership style grown with it, changed?
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe that?
Yeah, it has to I think my style had to change because we're certainly not the same company we were when we started. And one of the things I've noticed are and again, advice I got from someone is never be afraid to hire people. Never be a problem when good people leave, because you should never want people that nobody else wants. Right. And so if someone leaves, that's great. I mean,
Right.
somebody else saw the value and someone
Right.
wanted it. So
Right.
in reverse, you hire good quality people, and allow them to do the job. And that's always been my leadership style, is to let them do the job. One of the things we've learned during the pandemic with remote work is that only strong people survive this, and as strong independent workers, because when you're not in a group, the only thing that can be evaluated is your work, not your social skills, not are you nice in the office,
Yeah.
not everybody's birthday.
Yep. Yep.
All that's out the window. Not that
Yep.
you stay late and pretend that you're at your desk working. None of that matters when you're working remote. We had some turnover, because the only thing that matters when you're working remote is your productivity. All the soft stuff kind of goes out the window. And so the team that we have and have built are people that are highly productive and require very little supervision. And that, I would say I kind of do that to a fault. Is my leadership style is the less you and I talk, the more I rely on you. If I rely on you, we hardly ever need to interact at all. And I think it's sort of like the squeaky wheel. The people that require more supervision, therefore get more attention.
Right.
But they're not sort of everyone's got an A team, a B team, a C team.
Right.
My A team.
But if they keep coming back to you, then you know that you can't let them run, because they're just going to run back.
They're going to run back, right? What you're trying to do is get everybody up to be A players.
Yes.
And sort of my style is, is hire good people and get out of the way and let them do their job. The part of my style over the growth of the company that I've had to embrace more is making sure that there was an organizational dynamic that would guide people even when we're working remotely. Right. This is how we do things. This is what we're looking for. This is who we're about. This is sort of the guiding light of where we want to be. And before I could see everything because it was a smaller company. And now it's like, I can't see everything. I need to be able to project to the team that this is where we're going, so that everyone is aware of what is it we're trying to do.
So that begs the question, because you have clients who are, obviously paying you money. How much do you give the folks there? I mean, now, there are some people that are on your team that are extremely, extremely experienced people, right? Like some of the most experienced people in the city of Philadelphia.
Yes.
In terms of government relations and whatnot. But there are other people who probably have less experience.
Yep.
So how do you manage them in terms of their interaction with clients? Do you get involved in that? Do you take a hands-off approach? What's your
yeah. So we have, I think 5 or 6 people, maybe 7 people that do direct client service work.
Okay.
They have the experience to be able to do so.
Okay.
They have that experience there. And then there are probably another 4 or 5 people, maybe more, that do the administrative side.
Okay.
And the support side, whose primary roles are not direct client facing. And I saw that early on when I was starting. Like some of the larger firms had whole support staff that just grinded out,
turned and burned. Right.
Yeah, never saw them. But when you asked for something, it got on your desk in 45 minutes, because there was a whole team of workers back there doing that. And I thought, that's the kind of efficiency that you're going to need to to be able to represent a Fortune 500 company, right?
Right.
That's the kind of work that they're looking for. And so, let's say we have a half dozen people who do direct client work because they have the experience that allows that, and we feel comfortable and have no reservations about them.
And the judgment, I would imagine.
Judgment. Yeah. Yep. And judgment. The other people will get there through time and experience. Because you're right, judgment is a learned thing. It's not something that you get.
It is.
It is a learned thing. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, every field is, basically the same in that respect, in the sense that, when I first got out of law school, it's not like, the firm that I work for said, hey, you go interact with this client and
Right.
give them legal advice. No, you get into the law library, you actually learn, everything that you can learn. And then at a certain point, we'll determine whether or not you're ready for the next step, which is to do client engagement.
Right.
Like, you just don't walk into client engagement as a young professional.
No, you did. And I think about it when I started, at a PR firm, like, you're right. They kept you sheltered. Like, you didn't interact with clients. You had to wait until you showed that you had the judgment to be able to understand their issues and provide value, other than the sort of the research and the back end work that you were doing. But that does take time. And I do think that's a lost appreciation on folks that are entering our workforce now, is that judgment is learned over time. The ability to work with clients, it's an art,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a learned one that comes with experience.
So what's an average day look like for you?
So an average day is sort of as a time management puzzle. And I'm a big believer as well, that there's hardly few problems can't be solved just by getting up earlier.
You believe in the early bird gets the worm.
Well, it's stolen time. And that is my hack. And that's another, it's that, and I'm a big believer in little becomes big. And so if I get up 2 hours earlier, that's 10 hours a week, that's 40 hours a month.
Yeah.
It's 200 hours a year.
Yeah.
You go figure out how much
you can do a lot.
You can do a lot. I mean, I feel that by the end of the week, I'm up a day before everyone. I'm living in the future. That's how I view it.
Right.
So my typical.
Well, what time do you go to bed, Mustafa?
Go to bed at 9. I go to bed.
You go to bed at 9.
Go to bed at 9.
Are you sleep at 9, or are you just in the bed at 9?
Oh yeah, that's an old secret I learned from the basic training. You hit that pillow, it's over. You go to sleep.
Okay. Okay.
So, in bed at 9. I'm up at 3 every morning.
So you get 6 hours.
I get 6 hours.
Okay.
I could function on less, but 6 hours is the target. I get up, get grounded in my day, think about what it is I need to do, coffee, workout, emails. It's a great time to get caught up, because you can actually, it's the one time a day where you can get work, work's not coming in.
Right.
So that's how I typically start the day. I get the kids out the door and out to school, because once they wake up, it's complete chaos. So I get about 3 hours in the morning before the storm starts with them. I get them out the door, and then the day used to start, and this is funny. My day used to start at 8:30 when I arrived at my desk, or I thought it started, but in reality, it started when you woke up. And that now is like such an arbitrary thing. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why millions of us arbitrarily decided that our day started at 9, when in fact your emails go off, your work.
Yeah.
It was just this.
I mean, at this point, it really, particularly, I mean, I think that, COVID actually kind of turbo boosted a lot of this stuff, right? So the reality is, people start sending me emails, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I have clients that are like calling me, dude.
Yeah,
like calling me at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, the whole thing has changed. 9 o'clock is out the window.
Yeah, it has changed. And when I think about it now, it is arbitrary, and the pandemic did accelerate work trends that would have taken us years to get to. It just, for a lot of things, like remote work, how much space you actually need, These are, and it forced us to do it in a authentic way because you had to.
Right.
It wasn't like, hey, we're going to go try this for a couple of weeks and see if it worked out. It was,
right.
You need to figure this out because this is what everybody is doing. And it was an even playing field because everybody was doing it. So
right.
My day is different now. After the kids drop off, I get somewhere to get through emails, find out what's happening in the news that may impact any of our clients in business. Meetings that I may have, am I working from the Philadelphia office? Do I have to travel to Harrisburg or Pittsburgh, where the other offices are, to take care of business there? Meetings, projects, more strategic organizational stuff than years past. We're thinking about the vision of the business,
right?
Where we want to do next, what alliances that we want to take care of, what allegiances we want to build, what partnerships make sense for us to get involved in. Client work, obviously, and, if there are problems that sort of require immediate attention, and strategy. It's, can we do that? Do we have a conflict with that? Is that something that fits for us? So just having those discussions is a daily part of the business. And then at night in reverse, go pick up the kids or evening reception, fundraisers, lots of fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, just trying to settle through email and start the process all over again. So that's a typical day. Business development obviously is a key part of it. But it's a different kind of business development.
I was going to say, how are you doing your business development these days, right? Because that has changed as well. I mean, it's kind of going back a little bit to the way it used to be, but still is different.
Yeah, business development, a lot of it, our business comes through referrals. And most business development now is identifying conflicts. Another piece of advice I got recently is that is the biggest barrier for growth for professional services firms.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially lobbying firms.
Absolutely.
Are conflicts.
Absolutely.
Not just category conflicts, but ideological conflicts.
Right.
Right. Like, do I feel comfortable working on that issue? Is that something that we can do? Is that something we feel comfortable doing? Does that make sense for us? What are the long-term repercussions for doing that? Is that going to be a problem down the line? You're trying to see around corners for yourself to see if that's going to make sense or not make sense. Have we vetted this client? Have they told us the full story about why they're calling us? Right. So, you get a lot of that. And you can't meet you as an entrepreneur and responsible for quality, can't outsource those decisions. Like, those are the hard decisions, right? Is that, can we do that? Is that the right thing to do? Is that going to haunt us?
Do you make those by committee, or do you just rely on your own judgment?
I have an executive team, my senior leadership team. And so I'll present to them as unbiased as I can what I know, and ask them to help me run through it. Like, does this make sense to you? What have you heard? What do you know about this? Is this a problem? Is this a good opportunity? Is this something that we'll go through it and see if it makes sense, and then move forward from there. But every case is different based on what we can do. But it's different now. I would tell you 3 years ago, right, you hardly have any conflicts.
Right.
I mean, not on the client side. Ideologically, yes, but not on the client side. But as you grow, you have them, right? Because it's going.
Yeah, I remember you talking about you would basically have one client per industry. Is
per
that
industry, yeah?
right?
Yeah,
you would have one client per industry.
Per
Do you still hold on to that, or has that loosened up a little bit?
Yeah, you dice it up a little bit, and now it's okay. So we have a client in that industry in Pittsburgh. So okay, we can handle that now.
Right.
We have client in that industry for work that we're doing in Washington, D.C. So it varies now, of what, and then it gets a little deeper. It's like, what is that client asking us to do? So maybe you have two clients in that category, but what are they asking you to do?
Right.
And let's go have a conversation with them both and say, hey, they're asking us to do this, you're asking us to do that. Are you okay with it?
Right.
So I know law firms do it a little differently and like put up a
Law
wall.
firms treacherous, dude.
Right.
It's terrible.
Right. Yeah.
It's treacherous.
Because you could say it, but it's, ultimately, we had an issue in a transportation category where one client said it wasn't a conflict and the other one said it was. And ultimately, if the success and failure of it is going to be up to me as quality control, and at some point I have to be rooting for them both. And so you can't sort of be like, hey, I hope it works out for you.
Right. Right.
At some point you have to put your thumb on the scale.
Right.
This is
well, yeah, because it's like you become, in a sense, one with your client, right?
You do, and not just while you're representing them either.
Right.
And that's that's another reason why there are categories, and why what I mentioned ideologically, there are categories that we don't represent: alcohol, tobacco, cigarettes, firearms, like the sin stuff. We don't do that.
So you don't do casinos either?
No, these are all legal businesses.
Interesting.
These are all legal businesses, mind you. And I would tell you, and you know this as a consultant, these are all legal businesses that pay on time.
Yes.
Right. They pay up front, they pay well because of what they're doing.
Right.
And, it's hard to stand on principle when you're an entrepreneur and you need to get money in the door to pay other people. But I just felt that, long term, that this would be better. Because when I call someone, they know that I'm not calling them to represent one of those categories.
Right.
They're all legal grade categories. And they do pretty well, and cash flows is a thing when you're running a business. But
knows it is.
It's cash is everything. And it's different. You represent nonprofits and advocacy organizations, human service organizations, and they don't always they want to do well. But they have limitations. Let's just say they have limitations.
Right.
And so it can be easy to just go and do that. But you have to consider all the parts that go into it.
So a quick little thing on politics. So what should we be paying attention to in terms of Philadelphia politics right now?
Yeah, so Philadelphia is at the cusp, and it kicks off right after the general election. Philadelphia is right at the cusp of a wholesale change in city council. I think 8 new city council members, and that's an easy guess because 4, with potential 2 more, have already resigned to run for mayor, and so there's going to be an entirely new city council.
It's kind of insane what's going on right now.
It is, and it's never happened before. It's already historic. The only time more than 2 council members ran was in '99 with John Street and Happy Fernandez. That was the only time that's ever happened, and I would have not thought that. But this is where everyone wants to show that their vision to be an executive leader of the city, and with a term limited mayor and no favorite, people are like, I'm going to go.
Right.
And so we're seeing that right now, and I think there's still other parts to come into focus on that. So that's going to be a big deal. There's going to be a new mayor, a new council, and the council, the ideology of the council is going to change too. So you need to, if you're doing business in the city, that's something that you need to be prepared for.
I think would it be fair to say that the ideological bent of city council is going to be to go even further into the progressive side of the world?
Yeah. They are. They are, so long as the concern around public safety is addressed. Right. That's yes. We can move left and we can do things that way. But I have to think that the primary concern of anyone who lives in Philadelphia or works in Philadelphia right now has to be public safety.
And I would agree with you. I mean, clearly that's the case. But I don't know, from my outside kind of eyes looking at this whole thing, I don't know how responsive political leaders are really being right now to the crisis that is kind of what we're living through.
Yeah, I think you said that as fairly and without pointing fingers as possible. As well said. I think that I can add to that carefully and say that if we felt like there was a plan that was working, no matter how bad the day-to-day was, we would be okay.
Right. But
Like
we're like completely rudderless now.
it feels like if there is a plan, it hasn't been sold, and that part of that's a PR job. And I'll dovetail back to why I thought communications was such a good fit with government relations, because like if you can't explain good policy, like there's no point in it.
Right.
You get people to buy into what you're doing, a vision of what you have and why this is good for them, then it does you no good. And I think that's a great example now that even if there is a vision, let's just say there is a vision, there's a lot of smart people here, there's a vision, the buy-in of that vision is not there. And so I think that contributes to the feeling that public safety isn't being taken care of when I don't, the average person doesn't know like what's happening.
But I get I think it's even worse than that in the sense that, again, from an outsider perspective, it looks like we're at war with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we have we have two because I mean, let's face it, Philadelphia is a liberal city, and
Yes.
so everyone in city council, by and large, obviously
Sure.
you got a couple of Republicans are progressive, right?
Yes.
But I think there is a disagreement about emphasis right now.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the emphasis is on making sure that civil liberties are, given the privilege and the respect that they deserve, right?
Yeah.
But it I don't think it has to come at a cost, but it seems the perception is it is coming at a cost.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. And
Correct.
I would say that the strategy I thought the strategy was, how do you marry public safety and criminal justice reform? How do you do that successfully?
Correct.
So that it's not on a seesaw where one goes up and one goes down.
Right.
But that is sort of married in the middle and say, this is what we're trying to get done, and here's how we can do it. Because one of the things that lead to decrease public safety is when communities don't trust the police officers that police their community. And when you don't, I was explaining this to a Republican in Harrisburg, he said, so why is it so bad in Philly? I said, well, let me give you the why it does this. When you don't trust the police for whatever reason, you don't go talk to them when there's a crime that's happening. And so police can't solve crimes because people don't talk to them, and people don't talk to them because police can't solve crimes. So if something happens to you, Michael, and the police can't solve it, do you, one, want to be known as someone who's talking to the police, or two, go talk to someone who does not have the tools to go and solve it? And that's when the third thing happens is people, not civilized gentlemen like ourselves, but people go and solve the problem themselves.
Yes.
Because they don't believe the police can solve it. They don't want to be known for talking to the police. And they know that if they go solve it themselves, there's a very good chance that they're going to get away with it.
Right.
So it just becomes sort of this repetitive process. And at some point, that link has to be broken, where people believe that having conversations with police officers can be effective and helpful, and that you can trust the police and they can help solve some of the crimes that they're seeing. But it's one of those things on the wavelengths has to get broken up for it to start.
Well, the first thing that has to happen is that the office of the district attorney and the office of the mayor with the police commissioner need to get on the same page in terms of what the plan of action is really going to be. How do you create more trust within the community, and what policies are you going to utilize to make your crime fighting efforts more effective. I mean,
Right.
and you have to marry those two.
Yeah.
And
And
so
to have people believe, publicly aware that that's happening, because both, if you went to them both now, then everyone would say, hey, we're on the same page. But you and I don't know that. We don't
right,
believe that. And so,
right.
I think part of that's what
And
leadership.
then where's the evidence? I mean, where's the evidence?
Where's the evidence?
Right. So, all right, we're coming up close to the end, and I wanted to give you these rapid fire questions, because the rapid fire questions, I mean, people already know based upon this conversation how just brilliant, articulate, and just calm and all the great stuff that you are. But there's a way to dig even deeper, and I think we dig deeper with these rapid fire questions. So, you ready?
Okay. Yep.
All right. One word that describes you.
Relentless.
I love it. The best piece of advice you ever received.
I got recently, you can have it all, but not all at once.
I love that. A talent that people don't know you possess.
Talent. I'd say it's a skill, it's a superpower requiring little sleep.
That is a superpower that I do not possess. So I'm not trying to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
It's not going to happen. We the best we can do is 5, and that's what we work with.
Okay.
Biggest success.
I think it's recent is putting more emphasis on perspective, and I think it's something that happens as you get older. Again, we talked about being in the third quarter. You start counting the days, right? You start counting the days, and thinking, I got to make the most of this now. So I would say success is the evasive, not work-life balance, but work-life harmony, because that can be the seesaw.
Right.
Sometimes you got to work like this, and then other times you got to be able to bring it down and do family. So I don't know if it's ever that yin yang harmony. I think it's, I don't think it's ever that balance. I think it's harmony.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did want to talk to, we obviously we're running out of time. I did want to talk to you about, and maybe we can do it at another time, about work-life balance, because you have 2 of the cutest kids in the history of kids.
Thanks, man.
Right. And so I obviously, social media is not real. But I do see you spending time with your kids, and I know how challenging that can be as an entrepreneur to really be able to pull that off.
It is, but it also is the motivating factor for work. It's 2 things: the motivating factor for it, and it's the recharger to do it. It's the thing that recharges to be able to do it.
Last question: favorite musical artist.
I'm going to catch heat for this one, because I think about how do you separate the artist from his insanity, and that's Kanye West.
Oh no!
I know, man. I know.
Dude,
it's just
I love Kanye, but Kanye is way off the reservation.
He's way off. But here's the thing, and there is no way, from the time, and you see this with the best athletes, the best entertainers, the best anyone, they cannot be balanced.
Yes, well,
there's no you can't, like Michael Jordan punched teammates, right?
Yes.
He was psychopathic, right? You cannot be that focused on your craft and be the best in the world at it, and have the room in your life to have interpersonal skills, to have anything that's outside of what you do, to have growth. It doesn't allow for that.
Read a book, I don't know.
You can't. You are so, if you are the top 2 or 3 in the world at what you do, that you're even able to have a family and do other normal things is a miracle, because that's all you ever do. Like from the time he was 7 years old, that's all he ever did.
I get it.
He would learn how to deal with other human beings in a natural, organic way. Like it's just, and so when I see someone who's the best at what they do in the world, still are able to manage and have relationships and show growth, I think that's the miracle, because it requires so much of you. And so, I look at this guy and I'm like, this guy is actually brilliant, like the best that has ever done it. Like, I don't expect him to be human in other areas. It's just, they don't,
Well,
like, to your point, read a book.
I'm glad you don't have that expectation, because at this point, he's a mystery to me.
It's hard. They make it hard, and then eventually, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. But I think if you go back and look through it, like look at Kobe Bryant, like he's zero personal skills.
None.
I mean, like
None.
did not know how to deal with other humans.
No, he did not.
And
He
that,
did not.
because you dribble a basketball from the time you're 4 years old to the time you're 30, like you don't do anything else. That's what you can do. And it doesn't, like, they're just not there. Again, we're talking about balance. Those people are not balanced because
I agree. I agree with that.
Yep.
And I think that is a great explanation for kind of where he finds himself. He also is chemically imbalanced, by the way, and that's another thing that people don't really, I don't think they talk about enough. But it's perplexing. But you are not perplexing. You are amazing. And another thing I would say to you, as I was thinking about you talking about that question about why there aren't other firms of color. I think that you have now inspired others to go down this same path. I mean, I know that there are some other firms out there. They may not call themselves technically lobbying firms or government relation firms, but they're kind of in the same,
there's no reason for it not to be. I think we answered, or it was before we even started, there was no fundamental reason why it hadn't happened other than it just hadn't happened. So I'm hopeful that I talk to folks who want to get into business all the time or start it, and say, find your niche, do what's right for you, do what feels good, and just sort of drive your way there, and you'll find your way there if it's important to you and that's what you want to do. There's no one way to do it. Just wake up with that drive every day, saying this is where I want to be, and you'll get there, and then everything else comes with it, but you'll get there if that's what you want to do. But I hope that's a legacy I can leave behind, and say that that question doesn't get asked in the future.
Mustafa Rashed, thank you so much for sharing an hour with us. We greatly appreciate your time today.
Michael, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to future discussions. Let's get together soon, man. And not the Philly get together soon, but for real.
Yeah, for real.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. And audience, thank you for being a part of our show. We look forward to continuing the discussion, keeping it going. Until the next time, take care.